Now, as we move on to the second part of the test review, we're looking at number 18 here. It does say that we're going to factor and solve to find the two solutions. So remember, it's the same thing we've done before. Yes, I have a power of 2. So the first thing I should be checking is a GCF to see if there's anything that divides it. Now, a 2 divides a 2, but 17 is not divisible by 2. This doesn't have a letter in it. Well, then it doesn't have a GCF. So we do what we've done before. I'm just going to move it to the side here a little. I get my two parentheses. There's my equals 0. Now, there is a 2. So 2 times 1 are my factors of a 2. And because I only have one option for this one, then I'm going to write them down right away. There's a 2, there's a 1. There is an x squared, so we break that up, x and x, as we always do. But remember, this is where we have to be careful with our checking, especially when we have a coefficient in front, when our a value is not a 1. So I will be doing my checking. Now, the number 21. The number 21 is 21 times 1, 7 times 3, and that's about it. Now, I have to look at my choices very carefully here. So my goal is that they add to give me a negative 17. So these choices will add to give me a negative 17 as an option. So let's see what works. Now, I know I have to multiply by 2. So 2 times 21 doesn't sound like a nice number there, especially not if I'm going to add to get a 17. So I'm going to try the 7 and the 3 first. So I try 7 and 3, and let's see. 7 times 1 is 7. 2 times 3 is 6, but they add up to 13, not a 17. Well, remember, when that happens, it just means we're going to take our 7 and 3, maybe get these numbers out of the way as well, and now we're just going to swap them. So now I'm going to go with a 3 and a 7. So let's see what happens now. 3 times 1 is 3x. 2 times 7 is 14. If I add them, there's the 17, but I want a negative out of it. Well, remember, when you're adding, the signs should be exactly the same. So then they're both negative. And if I make them both negative, there's my negative 17. So those are my factors. But remember, this is an occasion where they did say equals 0. So that means I'm going to take this factor, 2x minus 3, make it equal to 0. And of course, I need to take the x minus 7 and make that equal to 0. So now I'm just going to very carefully solve. They did say we're going to have two answers, but we know that already. So we're going to add the 3. 2x is equal to 3. And when I divide by 2, there it is. I'm out of space, but there's my first answer. X is equal to 3 over 2. Not a negative 3 over 2. We're looking at the positive one. And then for this one, well, all I have to do is just add 7 to both sides. And so we get the answer that x is equal to 7. And again, look how they try to get us with that negative, but we don't fall for those tricks there. There's my answer. So again, we only do this last part because they originally said equals 0. Don't add your own equals 0, only if they bring it up. Okay, moving right along. So it says factor and solve. So if you look at question number 18, number 19 is the same type of problem. So we're not going to repeat questions, but it's a good practice one for you to try out. There's a key if you need to check it. So we're going to move to number 20, where it says factor completely. You see, there's no equals 0. That's all right. That just means I won't take that extra step at the end. But here's what I will do. I see a number in the front, so I definitely want to check for GCF. And I see a letter in the back, another indicator why I should check. All right, the only number that divides a 2 is 2. 12 can be divided by 2. 16 can be divided by 2, so my GCF is 2. So remember, we're basically asking, what can I divide everybody by? Well, I can divide everybody by 2. And then the x. This has 3 x's, this has 2, this has 1. I'm only allowed to take 1 x, because that's all this one has, from everybody. So we're subtracting our powers, but we're dividing our numbers. So we write our 2x in front. That's what we do with our GCF. There are 2 plus signs. Let me get those going. All right, so here comes our division. First thing I divide is 2 divided by 2 is 1. You just have to subtract your powers. So 3 take away 1. I've got 2x's left over. All right, next one. 12 divided by 2 is 6. But now let me look at my x's. I have 2 here, I have 1 here. I'm subtracting my power, so 2 take away 1. Yes, we have an x left over. And finally, we divide 16 by 2. Well, 16 divided by 2 is 8. But 1x minus 1x, well, I have no x's left over. So here's where I'm at now. Now, we do have 3 terms. So I do need to check for further factoring. That 2x is done. It's ready. But now I need to see if I can break this down into 2 parentheses, 2 factors for this trinomial. One of the things we mentioned was if you have x squared, there's no number that we see there. So I'm going to go x and x right away. I've got this 8 right here that I'm going to break up. And the numbers that give me an 8 are 8 times 1, according to my list, and 4 times 2 are the only numbers that multiply to give me an 8. But this is where the goal comes in. Our goal in factoring is to add for this problem. And I'm going to add to get a 6x. Now, everybody's positive, so I don't have to worry about negatives. But when I look here, the only ones that add up to a 6 are these 2. So then we know it's going to be a 4. We know it's going to be a 2. And everybody's positive here. Well, then we're going to have positive signs for both. Now, we can do a quick check. Look, 4 times x is 4x. X times 2 is 2x. And if I add them, there it is. There's the 6x, just to make sure it worked. But just like that, we once again now have our answer. Okay. Remember, factoring, we have to know what the goal of factoring is. We're looking for the 2 things that multiply to give us this, but this is what helps us. That little goal of adding, telling ourselves whether we're adding or subtracting. Speaking of factoring, well, look, here we go again. It says factor. Now, I do see a number in the front. Okay, so I got to watch out for that. So when I look at my list, I'm looking at GCF first. Now, there's no letter, so there's no letter in my GCF, but there's a 4. So what divides a 4? Look, I can even make a list here. 4 times 1, 2 times 2. All right, 4. Well, 13 can't be divided by 4, so that's not going to work. 13 can also not be divided by 2. All right, well, then that means there is no GCF. That's all right. I'll get my 2 parentheses going. But remember, I don't have one option. I have 2 options here. So the only thing I can do is write the C, but I do need to leave this empty space here for now, because I don't know which number I'm going to go with yet. Then I look on this side, and when I look at the 12 is 12 times 1, 6 times 2, 4 times 3. So that one even has more options. So now I really can't write any numbers anywhere. But what we're trying to do is, remember the goal, we are going to subtract. So when I do this, I'm going to subtract. That means one of my numbers is negative, and the answer that I'm going to get with my subtraction will be a 13C, a positive 13C. That's the goal. So we're going to try some numbers out, see what works. If it doesn't work, then we'll try something new. But we are trying to subtract to get a 13 out of it. All right, let's give it a try. Let's see, I'm just going to go in order. It's a 4 and a 1, so I'm going to start there, 4, 1. And remember, if that doesn't work, I'll switch them out. All right, let's see. Well, now I have too many. I have a lot of options here. Let me see. I'm going to go from the bottom. I'm going to start with 4 and 3. So 4 and 3. And again, I'm subtracting. 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times 1 is 4. If you subtract them, that's the goal. That's not going to be a 13. All right, so that didn't work. So 4 and 3 are not it. I can leave the 4 and the 1. That's a good thing. I don't have to change those. But I'm going to change it to a 3 and a 4. All right, here we go. 3 times 1 is 3. 4 times 4 is 16. And if I subtract them, there it is. I want to get a 13 when I subtract, and that's what I get from here. The question is, who's the negative? And if you're thinking -3, you're right. because I want my answer to be positive, so my bigger number should be positive. So when I come up here, now we know this is the right order. It's a 3, it's a 4 there, but I want my 3c to be negative, so there's the negative. 4 times 4 is positive 16c, so we put a plus sign there. Just like that, we've got another factoring problem done. This one, there was a lot of stuff I could have checked. We got lucky that we got it on the second try. Okay. Now, number 22 is the same type. Same type of problem, but these are always kind of weird, so I am going to cover this one. All right, so now there's a 3. The only thing that gives me a 3 is 3 times 1. But remember, I do have to check GCF, so let me do that first, actually. The only number there is 3. Can 25 be divided by 3? The answer is no. This has a letter, this has a letter, this one doesn't. Then there is no GCF. All right, I'm going to go right into my parentheses then. Now, because this time I only have one option, that does make it easier. When I only have one option, that 3k squared is 3k and 1k. I'm just going to put k. All right, but now I need to break down this 18. That's 18 times 1, 9 times 2, 6 times 3. And let's think about our goal. Our goal is subtraction. That's the goal. I am going to subtract to get a 25 out of it. And not just a 25, a negative 25. So remember what that means. When I'm doing my checking, these numbers, I have to move it to the side, has to make negative 25 with subtraction. So I need some big numbers coming my way. I'm trying to get bigger than 25 because I'm going to subtract. All right, well, let's see. 3, let me see. 3 times 3, that's 9. I want a number bigger than 25. 3 times 6 is 18, no. 3 times 9, hey, that's what I'm going to go with. 3 times 9, I know is 27. So I'm going to start with 9 and 2. And 3 times 9 is 27. And if I'm using the 9, I'm going to use the 2 right here. 2k is 2k. And if you subtract them, there it is. So you see, I was thinking ahead. I know I needed to multiply somebody by 9. I know I'm subtracting, so I better get a number bigger than 25. Well, this got me what I needed. But the question is, who's the negative? Well, looking at it carefully, we want the 27 to be negative so that I reach my goal. So with that said, the 2k is positive. So positive 2k. And I want a negative 27. So then that's my negative 9. And so very carefully, remember, it does need to match. There's k minus 9. Oh, there it is. K minus 9. And 3k plus 2, there it is. The perfect match. So there's my answer. Remember, these factoring ones with a number in the front always get interesting. That's why we've been practicing a lot of them. Now, 2 more problems on this page. We saw this one the other day. The other day we saw it with a basketball court. Well, today we're talking about a swimming pool. The rectangular pool has a base of x minus 9. Remember, learn to highlight the math. That's the math. A height of 6x minus 5. And then, of course, they say the word, find me the area. As soon as that word comes up, remember, this goes back to your middle school days. But what we mentioned in class was when you're doing area, different books, different teachers will say area is base times height, length times width, side times side. Just remember, area means you need to multiply 2 things. In this case, 2 sides. Well, you have your x minus 9. You have your 6x plus minus 5. Well, those are your 2 things. So x minus 9 and 6x minus 5. It doesn't matter which one you write first. But when I find area, all we have to do is multiply 2 things. So we don't need the picture anymore now. I just need to do the work. All right, so here we go. X times 6x. Well, that's 6x squared because you're supposed to add your powers. X times negative 5. Well, that's negative 5x. A number and a letter always go written next to each other. Then, of course, we have negative 9 times 6. Well, that's negative 54x. And negative 9 times negative 5 is positive 45. And of course, as always, the only thing I can do now is combine like terms. That's why we look at the terms right in the middle here. So my final answer for area is the 6x squared. Now I have to do the combo. Negative 5 minus 54x is negative 59x, because you got to combine like terms. They're both negative. And then plus 45. And just like that, we're done with yet another question. All right, and then of course, this is a throwback to last semester. We have to know how to draw lines. But remember, when you draw a line, there's two pieces of info that are important. The number next to the X and the number without an X. And the one we actually start off with, just to refresh your memory, is what we call the y-intercept, aka the b value. Well, my y-intercept is 2. So b is equal to 2. Well, that means I'm going to draw it right on here. It's called the y-intercept, so I have to be on the y. There's the 2. And now I need to draw more points. Well, that's where the yellow number comes in. That is called my slope, aka the letter m. So m is equal to negative 3. We put a 1 under it because we're drawing. But remember, you should always tell yourself in advance, is this line increasing or decreasing? Well, because of the negative, it's going to look like this. It's like it's dropping. It's a decrease. That's because you're going to drop down 3 and you're going to go over 1. So let's do that now. Drop down 3, 1, 2, 3, and then over 1. That's my new point right there. And I'm going to do one more just so I can draw a straight line. 1, 2, 3, 1 over. There it is. And now I'm ready. Take any card, ID, whatever you have available. Old gift card, something. And there's my equation of the line. Sorry, there's my graph of the line. Now, I wish I could say we were done, but we still have one more page to go. Luckily, there's only 3 little tiny questions. So here we go. We've talked about these before. These are all about patterns. And so anytime I give you a list, even if they're written in a table, we don't care. It's all about finding a pattern. So I see my numbers going up. And let's see, to go from a 9 to an 18, but then jump it up to a 36, they're multiplying by 2. And you can check with your calculator. 9 times 2 is 18. 18 times 2 is 36. 36 times 2 is 72. So they're using multiplication for this pattern. All right, well, let's talk about this one. You see, now when I look here, my numbers are getting smaller. Well, that's okay. Numbers can only get smaller if you divide or if you subtract. Well, I can't think of a number I divide by 9 or 9 divided by a number to get 7. So it's probably subtraction. Take away 2, 7, take away 2 is 5. 5, subtract the 2 is 3. So there's the pattern. So then the question is, well, how do we tell them apart? Well, remember what we mentioned. There's something called exponential. There's something called linear. And it's all about patterns. That's what math is all about. So linear means your pattern is adding or subtracting. Where exponential, the pattern is to multiply / divide, one or the other. Well, this is multiplication. So because it's multiplication, this is an exponential. And when we say, well, what's the reason? Because the pattern is multiplying by 2. That's what we can say. Over here, Look at the pattern, subtracting, subtracting, subtracting. Then we already know because it's subtracting, this will be linear. And because the pattern, right? We always talk about the y. The pattern is subtracting by 2. All of this is in your word wall. Look these words up. You know you're going to need that part of the word wall for the test. Which now brings us to the very last question of this review, and then that way you can finish your homework and any other homework you owe. Remember, you're going to tear out the pages and turn it in. But that brings us to the very last one. They said, which one is the graph? And we have 4 choices there. So there we go. For 4 times 2 to the power of x. Look, please don't just stare at this and go, I think it's that one. I think it's that one. No, play it safe. You're going to use your calculator. You're going to go 4, 2 to the power of. And now, that's why you have calculators. Use it. Make yourself a table. We've done this over and over where we try -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. Make a table until you find the one that works. So we start to plug in. If I plug in a 4, you get the calculator ready, 4 parentheses 2 to the power of, all right, so here we go. -2, I get a 1. And then 4, I just go back up there. I'm going to change that 2 to a -1. All right, so it's a 2. I'm going to go back up there, change it to a 0. So that's a 4. Change it to a 1. See, so we have an 8. And then I go up there and I change it to a 2 and I get a 16. So if you notice, my numbers are getting bigger and bigger as I go, which means it should be a plane as they're growing, gets bigger and bigger and bigger going this way. This is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for exponential growth. So that's why, yes, yes, definitely not, definitely not. My numbers are getting bigger, not smaller. So now it's between these two. Well, look, just look for your numbers. Here, this is an easy one. 0, 4. 0, 4, 0. Look at that. There it is. That's touching 0, 4 right there. So I already know this one's got to be the answer. But I can even check one more. -1, 2. -1. There it is. -1, 2. Just to make sure that everything is there. All right. So with that said, you now know how to do every problem that's on the test. And no, your test doesn't have this many questions. We just did a lot of practice. But now you're ready for Fridays or Thursday, depending on your period, the test. Remember, you're going to work on page 45. You're going to finish that in 46. Put your name on it, tear it out, turn it in, anything that says homework. So don't forget to do the same, since you already saw more problems anyways. There it is. Page 39 as well. Make sure you put your name on it, tear it out, make sure you did the backside, drop it off in the box. With that said, have a wonderful day, everybody. Be ready for the test.